Good morning, Year 11. Trust you had a good weekend. Here's a starter question for you. Can I get you to multiply out those brackets? Pause and have a go. Now, there's a couple of ways you can do this, and I don't know which way you go about it. I like to use this grid approach. So I've got x plus 3 and x plus 7, and I'm reminded by the grid that I need to do 4 multiplications. I know some of you do it with little lines or other methods. So I know that when I've multiplied it out, I've got an x squared, and don't forget I'm multiplying, so this is 21, it's not 10. I've got a 21, but I've got x's in 2 places, and I always call this bit peanutting. So you peanut the x's, you've got 7 x's and 3 x's. So that is 10 x's. Now, if you use a different approach, I don't mind, as long as you're getting the correct answer. Okay, go on, try one more for me. Another one, press pause and have a go. So I think the grid is particularly helpful here. I get my x squared. Plus 5 times minus 5 is minus 25. But what happens when I peanut? I've got 5 x's, and then I take away 5 x's. So I've got no x's left. So actually my answer is just x squared minus 25. Okay, let's get on with the rest of the lesson. So we're moving on to another one of these revision lessons. So these are going to come pretty quick fire. We're only spending one lesson on each of these revision topics. Nothing new, all stuff you should have come across before, but of course it might have been back in year 9. So, you know, it might be a bit rusty. Today we're talking about exchange rate problems. So this is when you go on holiday, you need to change your money from one sort to a different sort. Of course, no one's going on holiday at the moment. Will we ever be able to go on holiday again? I don't know. Maybe this will cease to be a problem. But hopefully, particularly as you stand on the brink of potentially one of your greatest summers ever. The summer at the end of year 11 is a particularly long holiday. And of course, the secret to enjoying that long holiday is working hard this year so you can sit and enjoy your summer with a clear conscience. Anyway, let's push on. Now, of course, I'm a new teacher. I don't know whether Mr. Porthwick's done some exchange rate problems with you this year. Probably not, because it was earlier in the scheme of work. But it might be I use a slightly different approach, and I hope, as always, that's not a huge problem. So we're going to look at a number of problems. Here's the first one. Rosie and Jim going on holiday to the USA. Obviously, they use dollars. We use pounds. So these questions always include the exchange rate. The exchange rate. So for each pound I hand in to the exchange place, I'm going to get $1.34 back. And I always draw that as a bubble diagram. Okay, so I am going from pounds to dollars. So I've got pounds on this side of the equal sign, dollars on that side, pounds on the left side, dollars on the right side, and my arrow's going there. £1, it's getting bigger. It's turning into 1.34. So I'm multiplying my pounds by 1.34. Hopefully you can see that that means that if we were going the other way, we would be dividing by 1.34. And of course it depends on what the question's asking. We haven't got to the question yet, but that diagram will allow me to answer whatever features in this question. Now you will need a calculator for today, so make sure you've got your calculator with you, either hopefully you've got your own or on a phone or something. So this is a nice easy one. He changes £350 into dollars, so it's just 350 times 1.34. And if there's ever any sort of doubt about rounding, we always round money to 2 decimal places, don't we? I mean, in this case, it's not a problem. We get $469. Okay, so here's another similar question. So you can see my bubble diagram from the first one. So can you have a go at this question for me? Again, start with a bubble diagram and then answer the question. It's subtly different to the first one. Have a pause, have a go. Okay, did you spot how this was subtly different? I mean, you know, we're dealing with pounds and euros, but that wasn't what I was really referring to. I've got my arrow going the correct way, and that's divide by. This time we were going the other way, weren't we? We were going from euros to pounds, so we had to divide. And some of you might be saying, well, it was obvious, but it's a really easy mistake to make. And the other issue here was that I got a horrible decimal number, so with money, we always default to 2 decimal places as our method of rounding. Okay, one more for you to try. And pause and have a go. Okay, so this time we were going from pounds to lira, so we were multiplying. I don't know the symbol for the Turkish lira. I just used an L there, so that's that. Okay, let's move on to some harder problems. Now, this question might surprise you. Did you realise that when you go on holiday and change your money, and then if you come back with money left over and you change it back, you don't get the same exchange rate? Each time, the company that you're using builds in a bit of a profit for them, so you don't get the same deal going out or coming back. And this question is all about that. So we've got 2 exchange rates here. We've got the going exchange rate and the returning exchange rate. Okay, the going exchange rate is, we're talking here about Aussie dollars, Australian dollars. It's multiplied by 2.1, coming back, and of course coming back, well, I'll let you work out which way you go when you're coming back. The exchange rate is £1 for every 2.2, sorry, that should say times 2.2, I've got 2 decimal points there by mistake. I'll cross that out and start again, times 2.2, there we go. So have a read of this question and see if you can answer part A and part B. Pause and have a go. So well done if you spotted that going out, obviously he's changing pounds to dollars, so he's multiplying by 2.1. But obviously coming back, and he only has 100 Aussie dollars when he comes back, going back, he needs to go the opposite. So he's dividing by the return exchange rate, which is 2.2. So that's how much he gets there. So this is a classic case of an exchange rate question. So we're going to do a couple of these. This is where they tell you how much the same thing costs in 2 places. So we've got a hat you can buy in France for 45 euros or in England for 39.99, and we're asked, where is it better value? And you've got to decide what you're going to do. Are you going to compare the price in euros or in pounds? That's your first decision. So I'm going to work in pounds. I'm going to compare in pounds, okay? So the French hat, that's 45 euros. So if I'm going to convert that to pounds, that's 45 divided by 1.12, because I'm going from euros to pounds. So 45 divided by 1.12, and that gives me a horrible number, which I'm going to round 2 decimal places. So that's 40.18 when I round it, £40.18. Same hat in England is £39.99. So is the hat cheaper in France or in England? It's cheaper in England. And sometimes it asks you how much cheaper, but this one doesn't. I could have done exactly the opposite. I could have taken the English hat, multiplied it by 1.12 and got its price in euros and compared that with 45 euros. It would have been the same answer. It still would have shown that the hat was cheaper in England. So here's a similar question for you to try. This one is about India and UK. In India, the currency is the rupee, and you have got a pair of trainers that costs 3,400 rupees and £68. And this time, when asked which is cheaper, we're asked to work out the difference So, and we're asked to give the answer in pounds. So we know that in this case, we've got to do what I did in the previous question and work in pounds. Have a go. Pause, and I'll come back with the answer in a minute. Okay, so the Indian trainers, 3,400 rupees. Divide that by 92, because I'm going from rupees back to pounds, and that gives me £36. It was 0.95652, so that rounds to £36.96. In England, they are £68, so I did that, take away that, and I worked out they were £31.04 cheaper in India. Good stuff. Okay, one final question now. This is another one of those questions about different exchange rates when you go on holiday and come back from holiday. But it's a little bit more complicated than that for a couple of reasons. Firstly, we've given a London exchange rate and a New York exchange rate. So the London exchange rate tells us how pounds are changed into dollars. So I multiply by 1.31. The New York exchange rate is telling us how dollars get changed back into pounds. And that is $1 is 79p, 0.79 pounds. We know when we multiply by a number less than 1, we get a smaller answer than we started with. So if we change dollars to pounds, you end up with less pounds. That makes sense. If you've travelled to the States, you know that's the case. We're told Bernie wants to change some pounds into dollars, but he could do it in London, or he could wait, keep his pounds in his pocket until he got to New York, and he could change them using the New York exchange rate. So which is it better to do? Well, what we're missing in this question, we're not told how many pounds he's got. So in a question like this, just make up a number. And if I were you, I'd make up a number that's quite easy. So I'm going to say, let's imagine £100. Okay, he's got £100. So in London, if I change £100 into dollars in London, so I'm going to move this down so we can see it all. In London, £100 into dollars, that's 100 times 1.31. I don't even need a calculator for that. That's $131. Now, if he holds on to his money before he gets to New York and then uses the New York exchange rate, pounds into dollars, we're dividing by 0.79. I know that's going to give me a bigger number than I started with because I'm dividing by a number less than 1. So 100 divided by 0.79 gives me 126.58 when I round it dollars. So the question said, in which cities would he get the most dollars? So he'd get the most dollars in London. He would get the most dollars in London. Okay, so here is a question for you to submit, normal drill. It's a two-part question. First part straightforward, second part is one of those buying the same thing in two different countries. And I hope that you will be able to answer that. I feel sure that you will. And if you could submit that on class charts or by email as usual, that would be brilliant. So that's Monday's lesson. Hope you're okay. Speak to you soon.